the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
The U.S. Consul General Rick Swartz. We have here in the studio Cecilia Omorugbe, who was at the pitch today. I didn't see you in any of the videos, though.
I don't know why they didn't show it. I mean, the editor actually... I lifted the trophy.
Right.
You know, what journalists won. 6-2, you know what that means.
Oh, yeah, of course. I know what that
means. We don't just talk sports, we play sports.
We play sports, yes. Indeed. And I'm so happy, you know, with this... with this win, I mean, we're not at the World Cup, but at least we represented ourselves somehow with the
Something
U.S.
to celebrate, yes.
Yeah, and I just wonder, you know, how the Nigerian team feels, you know, being absent from this World Cup, watching the other 10 teams play.
It's painful, really. I mean, it's actually sad to watch. I was at the event, and then people just kept talking about it. Yeah. And you listen to U.S. Consul General talking about the fact that, yes, Super Eagles may not be there, but Nigerians were well represented. The Afrobeat stars, talking about Rema and the others, you know, who performed at the opening ceremony. That video becoming the first, you know, Nigerian back-to-back World Cup. Or first musician, actually. It hardly happened back-to-back at the World Cup, apart from Shakira, of course, which we know a regular when it comes to that. Yeah. But then it was something that we were looking forward. Normally, naturally, an event like you won't see so many journalists here. Yeah. But then lots of them are here. Few actually are the US because, okay, Nigeria is not there. So they're just following. But it's still painful. But then we are following all other African countries that are actually participating. And of course, we know that these are all just journalists.
We can see you in the pictures.
Yeah,
there,
finally,
right maybe someday you and the other journalists will be representing Nigeria somewhere at the World Cup or some international tournament. I wanted to talk very quickly about Cabo Verde. Yeah, you saw the joy on, you know, many of the fans back in prayer, people just celebrating and rejoicing. And the star of the match is the 40-year-old goalkeeper who became an instant sensation after that match, gaining over 5 million followers on Twitter. Or was it on Instagram? Instagram. Talk about that match and why this means so much for them.
They're making their debut. 500,000 people in that country. You know, you're looking at the country, they're making their debut at the World Cup. They're not up to 1 million. You're looking at Spain, 50 million people in Spain. Spain have won the Euros 4 times. They won the World Cup once, and then they have all the superstars coming in. And then it was the defensive masterclass that it actually set up. I think that's where, you know, that's why this is actually historic for everyone that watched football. When you're playing against the Spanish team, we know they know how to keep the ball. For Cape Verde to be able to, you know, match them for full 90 minutes without conceding a goal. I mean, the goalkeeper made 7 crucial saves. I mean, it's hard for you to do that against the Spaniard team. Yes, they may not have an out-and-out striker that will get you the goals, but when Yami Lamar came on, we thought, okay, that's the guy that will do the very best and ensure that, yes, he will get the goal. He couldn't. What it shows is that in football, you never say never. Because once you park the bus, or rather you park the train, somehow they're able to penetrate, but they couldn't. And this goalkeeper is not even a professional goalkeeper. Part-time electrician, is an electrician part-time. He was scouted via LinkedIn. So he wasn't even like in the club or anything. He was scouted via LinkedIn.
So that's why he was scouted. For him, the World Cup.
He worked up as a side hustle, actually. Wow. And you know how much it's going to make. You know how much FIFA is actually giving for countries that qualify. That's why it's a big deal for them, really. That's why it's a big deal. And you look at that group now, for instance, Uruguay is next for them. But you're looking at that group. You've seen Saudi Arabia, you've seen Uruguay, and then you are looking at it and checking. They might just have a chance of actually making it out of that group, because it's difficult for a country making their debut at the World Cup, not having much of a professional players in there, and then you are able to, like, you know, hold Spain.
Yeah.
I mean, they committed just 1 foul. I mean, how is that possible? That's why it's magical. That's why it's historic, really.
Game, I have to say that. But
discipline.
And then, you know, we're also seeing at this World Cup, Tunisia changing its coach. I mean, how does that happen? I mean, the World Cup has barely started. I mean, we're just days into the World Cup and they're already changing coach.
You know, head coach. This is something we haven't seen before. I've been checking history to see if it has ever happened. Yes, we've seen 2 days before tournament, Spain did that in Russia 2018. We've seen even Tunisia in 1990, France 98. They changed their coach two games into the tournament. We've seen that happening before, but this is the first time a coach is being fired after just 1 game. Right. But it was written in the stars, because when their former coach was fired, he qualified Tunisia to the World Cup without conceding a goal, right? it was historic because it's difficult for you to go through 10 games without conceding a goal. They scored 22 goals, not conceding any. Out of 30 points on offer for the qualifiers for the World Cup, they got 28 points. That's how big they were, coming into the World Cup. At the Nations Cup, they couldn't continue with that, so they crashed at the round of 16 to Mali, and that's why that coach was fired. Of course, Lamuche came in. But build up to the World Cup, the warm-up games they played before the World Cup, when I say we saw the handwriting on the wall, they lost to Austria by a lone goal. They lost to Belgium 5-0.
Yeah, but
so now into the World Cup,
how could he change their fortunes in this World Cup? The fact that they're changing head coach, how would that impact?
I think just maybe I was looking at the stats, what he did with the goalkeepers. Now he started Damen Shamako, is 24 years old. He has made just 4 appearances for Tunisia before this World Cup, but he had the experienced 30-year-old who was out there, all through the qualifiers. Maybe that, it was baptism of fire for that young player. Just maybe that they still have Netherlands to play, they have Japan to play, and the easiest game they could have won is against Sweden. So what are the hopes of you beating Netherlands and Japan? That game ended 2-2, and we saw our Japanese star, who happens to be Ghanaian heritage, Zion Suzuki, made about 5 saves, 2 crucial ones to deny the Netherlands from getting a win in that match. So I don't know who Tunisia can actually beat. They might just be the first country, followed by South Africa, to come home.
I think this World Cup has so many underdogs.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want to root for the underdogs, I mean, Japan. I mean, the game itself was the game against the Netherlands. Watched a little bit of that. Was really surprised with the way they played. They kept qualifying, and I think we'll see more surprises.
Yes, we will see
at this FIFA World Cup.
There's Senegal France coming up tonight.
Yeah,
I can't wait for that.
Cecilia, you have a program coming up at 9 o'clock. I'm sure you'll be discussing this in much more detail than now. And of course, the sports news at 6 o'clock. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.